Thanks to you and to everybody in the shuttle program. The crew is go for launch.
Roger. Nice to be in orbit.
We have followed in their footsteps to get us where we are today.
Good morning and welcome to NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. I'm Joseph Zakshevsky with NASA Communications, and this morning we're here to discuss the next crew rotational mission to the International Space Station, Crew-11. We have leaders from NASA, SpaceX, and JAXA to join today's discussion, and we'll start with opening remarks and then open up the room to the phone bridge to answer questions. For those that are tied in online, you can tie in by joining the question and answer session, and members of the media by pressing *1 to be added. If your question is already addressed throughout today's conversation, you can withdraw your question by pressing *2. Joining us today are Ken Bowersox, the Associate Administrator of NASA's Space Operations Mission Directorate, tying in from Washington and NASA headquarters. Steve Stitch, joining me just to my left, Manager of the Commercial Crew Program. And next to him is Bill Spetch, Operations Integration Manager of the International Space Station Program. Also tying in is Sarah Walker, Director of Dragon Mission Management with SpaceX, and Mayumi Matsura, Vice President and Director General of Human Spaceflight Technology Directorate with JAXA. We'll go ahead and toss over to Mr. Bowersox for today's opening remarks.
Today, we really appreciate the interest that you show in our low Earth orbit missions, the exciting science that we do, the research that we do there that helps prepare us to move out to the moon and onto Mars. We've got a great crew on this mission. All of our crews are great, but I think this one's especially notable. We've got two rookies, Zena Cardman and Oleg Platonov, and then we've also got two folks who've flown before, Kimiya Yui and Mike Fincke. They'll be heading up to station here pretty soon. It's hard to believe we've had crews up there for over 25 years now, or close to 25 years. The station's been up there over 25 years. In October, we'll hit 25 years for continuous human presence on orbit. That's going to be a huge milestone, a great testament to the work of our commercial partners, our international partners, and the whole NASA team. The Crew-11 crew will join the 73 crew on orbit. AX-4's up there with them now. They'll be coming home soon. That opens up some space for Crew-11. And then after Crew-11's been there a little while, has some handover time, the Crew-10 will come home and we'll get to welcome them back here on Earth. As we're doing all this work, it's incredibly busy. It's an incredibly busy time for NASA. It's impressive to watch our team and how they focus on flying these missions safely. I know we can count on them to do their job, and that we'll get to see our crews here on orbit pretty soon doing their part to conduct research and prepare us for the next phase of exploration. And now I want to turn it over to Steve Stitch, our Commercial Crew Program Manager.
Thanks, Ken, and thank you all for being here today, and thank you for your interest in human spaceflight and the Commercial Crew Program. It is kind of hard to believe the launch of Crew-11 is just around the corner. It's about 3 weeks away. We're currently targeting no earlier than July 31st for the launch of Crew-11 off of Pad 39A at the Kennedy Space Center. So again, 3 weeks from today. That launch time would be about 12:09 p.m. Eastern, so it's a nice daytime launch, just a little after lunchtime. Docking would set us up. It's a longer transit time. This is a 39-hour launch to dock, so we would dock about 3 a.m. Eastern on August the 2nd. We'll watch that time closely. We have a limit of about 40 hours or so of ability to sustain the crew on the way to station when we protect all the consumables for contingencies. So we'll watch that really carefully. There's some station reboosts coming up, and if we trip over that limit, we would go to the backup day 1 day later on August 1st. We have a good series of launch opportunities in the July-August timeframe. We'll have backups on August the 1st, the 2nd, and the 3rd. And then we would have to stand down on August the 4th. That's a long phasing. Then we would get in another sequence of 3 days after that. So we have a good sequence of launch opportunities coming up. Of course, we're working with Station Program, watching the Axiom 4 mission, carefully. Obviously, we need to undock that mission. I think the current targeted time is to undock around the 14th of July after the high beta period. It's a busy time frame. This mission, we originally were planning this mission, Crew-11, to fly in the August time frame, mid-August. We've accelerated that. If you just look holistically at the manifest for this year, Commercial Crew Program has accelerated this mission by a couple of weeks to allow a critical reboost flight to occur on CRS-33, and I know Bill will talk more about that. So Commercial Crew is trying to do whatever we can to optimize the station manifest. We're very excited to fly our Dragon Endeavor for the 6th time, and we've been working on that certification as well. So this is the same vehicle that we flew 5 years ago, Bob and Doug on Demo 2, and it's really interesting to believe that it's now on its 6th flight. I was able to talk to the crew last week. Zena, Mike, Kimiya, and Oleg, they're very excited. They're prepared for this mission. They got in the Dragon spacecraft last week and put it through its paces right before the July 4th holiday. So they're ready to go. Their suits are in good shape. All the interfaces with Dragon are in good shape. Our team has been working very hard this year. It's been a big year for Commercial Crew in terms of getting to 5x reuse on our Falcon 9 boosters, moving all of our landing operations from the East Coast, from Florida to the Pacific, and then also working on extended Dragon reuse is what we call it. And so we've had to go through and do a recertification effort of Dragon, working hand in hand with SpaceX to get to 6 flights. Some components on Dragon will go up to 15 flights, but we're really working hard to get to the 6th flight of Dragon for Endeavor. Tremendous amount of work. We've looked at over 360 different design units is what we call them, and we're working through that right now. We have a little bit more work to complete, but it looks like that work should close out in time for the launch date, and of course, if we need more time, we can adjust the launch date. Sarah will talk more about Dragon Endeavor. It's doing well. All the components are installed on Dragon. Again, the crew did the test drive last week. Next up is wait in CG this week, and then they'll move Dragon from the Hangar X2 over to Dragonland, and we'll mate the trunk and the Dragon spacecraft, and then get into the fueling operations, not this weekend, but next weekend. And Sarah will talk more about that. This Dragon has a number of upgrades. We continue to try to improve our wrist posture for crew safety, so we have some new upgrades that we're flying on this flight. One of those is a parachute upgrade. Last flight, we flew a new energy modulator, which is a kind of a damping mechanism that is used for the drogues to pull the mains out. On this particular flight, we'll fly for the first time what we call a drogue upgrade, a drogue 3.1. This will strengthen the crown of that drogue parachute with some additional strength. And then we have changed the way it's packaged a little bit to have a more orderly inflation. It flew for the first time on CRS-32, and then we did a series of rocket sled tests at the Navy China Lake facility in June, 3 different tests to deploy that parachute in a simulated environment-like flight. We'll close that work out and certify it and get ready for flight. We also have a new heat shield as well on this Dragon. We've improved the capability of the structure. It's a composite heat shield, and so we have that that we're flying for the first time on Crew-11. The booster's in good shape. It's in the hangar going through its final processing. It's a 3rd flight booster, just flew recently on Axiom 4. That booster maintenance is underway, expected to wrap up in a week or two. 2nd stage is there. It's been through static fire at McGregor. So it's in good shape as well for that flight. And again, if we need to take a little bit more time, we have the time, and we can adjust the launch date if needed. As I mentioned, we'll launch off pad 39A. That pad is clear for Crew-11. That's the next launch off that pad is Crew-11. It's in good shape. We're not really working any major issues for the pad. And then, of course, once we get docked to station, we'll set up and work the Crew-10 return. Right now, if Crew-11 launches and docks safely by 8/2, the earliest Crew-10 date for return would be around August the 5th, and we'll work that with Bill and his team. We're also super excited to, for the first time for Commercial Crew, return our crew to the West Coast. Axiom will do that ahead of us. SpaceX has flown from too and landed in the Pacific as well, and then CRS-32 also landed there. But for the first time for Commercial Crew, and our team has worked very hard and completed all the certification to land on the West Coast. So we're going to take it step by step along the way to Crew-10 launch. We have our FRR starting next week, and we'll remain vigilant. I do want to thank the entire team, the whole NASA team working CCP across the country, the ISS program, SpaceX, the FAA, the Coast Guard, and Space Force. We have a lot of partnerships that participate in our missions, and everybody is pulling together and looking forward to a good launch. And I'll turn it over to Bill.
All right, thanks, Steve, and I'll echo my thanks for all of you being here and your continued interest in our mission. Of course, this will be the 11th crew rotation with SpaceX to the station as part of the Commercial Crew program, so we're really excited to have this occur. Steve laid out the times and the interesting dates for docking and everything, and then we'll have a short handover period between once Crew-11 arrives and before Crew-10 departs. That'll be dependent on just timing of the docking itself. As we talked about, there's a little bit of a long phasing there, as well as other things that'll be going on board station to get the appropriate handover between the crews. And then, of course, we'll be watching the weather for that return. We're really looking forward to welcoming the Crew-11 crew, Zena, Mike, Kimiya, and Oleg onto space station. Of course, this is the first flight for Zena and Oleg. As Ken mentioned, this is Mike's fourth trip to this will be Mike's fourth trip to space, and then Kimiya's second. So it's the first time on Dragon for all of them. Mike has done a flight on a shuttle as well as twice on the Soyuz. So now he gets to add Dragon to his collection of flights. And then Kimiya also flew on a Soyuz before. As you know, this year, and Ken mentioned, we'll be marking that huge milestone of 25 years of continuous human presence on the space station. And this will be the crew that will be on board to mark that milestone for us coming up. As you look at the past 25 years on station, we've really done an amazing amount of work advancing scientific knowledge, demonstrating new technologies, and really doing all of the things that help prepare us for human exploration of the moon and Mars. A lot of the technologies that we've proven out on space station over these 25 years are being used in those next step programs. Through the commercial approach that we've had and the partnership that we've had with SpaceX, these crew rotation missions, we continue to maximize our research and throughput on the vehicle, and really working towards that. And then, of course, the station is critical to prepare for future commercial endeavors in low Earth orbit. We have kind of paved the way in terms of the challenges that we've had to overcome. We've learned a lot of lessons for folks so that we don't have to repeat those and really help the industry stand up a commercial LEO economy. And that really allows us to do the next steps as well, going into Moon and Mars. I'll highlight a couple of the interesting science experiments that we have going on station for Crew-11. This is not an inclusive list by any means, but a couple of really interesting ones to me at least. We have a metal 3D printer, which is an investigation by our ESA colleagues that will run some more runs on board while Crew-11 is there, looking at additive manufacturing or 3D printing of small metal parts in microgravity. Results can improve understanding of the function and performance and operations of metal 3D printing in space, as well as enhance quality, strength, and characteristics of those printed parts. Another interesting one is an experiment called Rhodium Sailing to the Stars. Sailing to the Stars tests the deployment of a light sail inside the International Space Station. Light sails are a technology that uses light photons emitted from the sun to move spacecraft. Results from this investigation could inform improvements in the design of those deployment systems. So they're going to look at how these systems can deploy in microgravity. It gives them a really great chance to go look at that onboard ISS. And then finally, of course, we continue to look at our complement of integrated protocols for human exploration research, or CIPHER, which is looking at varying mission durations for people on board. These studies how astronauts adapt to space over different mission durations, integrating multidisciplinary research to assess physiological and psychological changes that develop, and really to develop those countermeasures that are critical for us to go do the longer duration missions, like a 3-year mission to Mars, if you can imagine. So station has been busy, as we've mentioned a couple times over, right? We have the Axiom 4 private astronaut mission on board today. They've been doing a lot of great work on board, a lot of really exciting public outreach for that crew, as well as science experiments that they've been doing. Today is 14 days on the station, and we're looking forward to welcoming them home soon. As Steve mentioned, we're looking early next week, probably for the first undock opportunity. And we'll look forward to weather and the other factors that play into that decision. Over the weekend, we had over the holiday weekend, we had a progress exchange with our Roscosmos colleagues. 92P launched and then docked on July 5th, carrying about 3 tons of supplies. Then we have, of course, SpaceX 33 coming up, which is a really exciting mission for us. It's providing a new capability for providing reboost of the station, and providing multiple methods for us to maintain the station altitude is critically important as we continue to operate and get the most use out of our resources and our limited launch resources that we do have. So we're really looking forward to demonstrating that capability with SpaceX 33 showing up after we get through the Crew-11 and Crew-10 handover. We have a number of other missions coming up this fall. We have another progress exchange in September. We also have our next Northrop Grumman mission, NG-23, will show up this fall with a new extended Cygnus capsule, so providing more capability to us in terms of cargo. As well as, and our JAXA colleagues will mention more about it, the first flight of the new HTV-X transportation vehicle, which is a completely new vehicle in our arsenal to resupply the station that has been under development from our Japanese colleagues. And then finally, we'll get to welcome aboard Chris Williams as part of the Soyuz MS-28 crew in November. So a lot of really busy vehicles, traffic coming and going to the space station. We're going to continue that pace as we go. And then we'll continue to work this great international collaboration. It's fitting we get to talk about our international collaboration here as we come up on Tuesday next week is actually the 50th anniversary of the launch for the Apollo-Soyuz mission. And so really looking back over our collaboration internationally over time and looking from where we started to where we are today, it's really awesome to see where we are. With that, thanks again to everybody who supports the mission here. We really appreciate all the efforts. There's a lot of work that goes into it. As you can see, we're very busy in terms of everything coming up. And with that, I'll turn it over to Sarah.
Thanks, Bill. Well, I say this almost every time, but human spaceflight is core to SpaceX's ultimate mission to make human life multiplanetary. So flying crew safely is always our top priority as a company. And one of the reasons these press conferences for these NASA crew missions are the most fun for me personally. This will be our 11th long-duration crew mission to the ISS through the Commercial Crew Program. It's our 16th human spaceflight mission to the space station in all, and our 49th trip to ISS if you count both crew and cargo missions. So we'll get to round out 2025 with an even 50th visit next month with that cargo mission, CRS-33, that Bill was talking about. We're excited to fly Zena, Mike, Kimiya, and Oleg along with their critical research projects that they're bringing up. And this will be our 5th Dragon mission and 4th human spaceflight mission of 2025. And we're also proud to be a part of Zena and Oleg's first spaceflight as well. Every human spaceflight mission is unique, and this one is certainly no exception. This Dragon spacecraft has successfully flown 18 crew members, representing 8 countries to space already. starting with Bob and Doug in 2020, when it returned human spaceflight capabilities to the United States for the first time since the shuttle retired in July of 2011, which happened to be the week I began at SpaceX. I still remember watching that last shuttle launch, STS-135. I was sitting in a conference room with a very small Dragon team at the time, and it was my first few days here. And I remember looking at the faces around me and thinking, today we begin. The world is counting on us to write the next chapter of human spaceflight, and it's time to get to work, right? So less than a year later, we sent our first Dragon to the spacecraft, or our first Dragon spacecraft to the ISS with a shipment of cargo. And here we are, more than 50 Dragon missions later, with the very first Dragon to carry humans into orbit now flying its sixth flight, which is more flights than any single Dragon spacecraft has flown before. We're excited for this Dragon, named Endeavour by its first crew, to carry 4 more astronauts to space in a few weeks. This will be the third flight for the Falcon 9 booster, which previously launched a Starlink mission and the AX-4 mission just a week or two ago. Peggy and her crew are actually still up on ISS today. It's been fun to follow along on their daily science updates on the Axiom website. And we're starting to look at the weather over here at SpaceX to find the right day to bring them home, likely sometime next week. For Crew-11, the ground teams are currently completing both the spacecraft and the launch vehicle's final integration campaign. And we plan to transport Dragon tomorrow night to our fueling facility to be loaded with propellant before it heads to the hangar next to be mated with the launch vehicle. So Steve already mentioned that we're currently targeting July 31st at 16:09 UTC, that's around noon Eastern time, as the first possible launch opportunity. But you've been walking with us long enough to know that, as always, NASA and SpaceX work closely to ensure that all teams and hardware are ready to fly. So we still have multiple reviews and tests ahead of us prior to launch, and each one of those gives us an opportunity to step back, to talk to each other, to review the data, listen to the hardware, and mitigate any risks for a safe flight. So I want to extend a huge thank you to everyone involved, NASA, JAXA, Roscosmos, and the 45th for your partnership as we prepare once again for a mission together. And go Crew-11.
And next, we'd like to welcome Mayumi Matsura, Vice President and Director General of Human Spaceflight Technology Directorate with JAXA.
Hello, everybody. I'm Mayumi Matsura, Vice President for Human Spaceflight and Exploration in JAXA. Thank you for having me today. And first, on behalf of JAXA, I'd like to sincerely thank NASA's leadership, space expert, and all members who are working so hard on Crew-11 mission preparation and continuing ISS operations. I'm going to tell you about a Crew-11 mission from JAXA's standpoint. JAXA astronaut Kimiya Yui is part of Crew-11 members. This is his second mission since 2015. The first highlight we will see during the mission is the reunion of the 2 JAXA astronauts on the ISS. Takuya Onishi, one of Cardman members, and now he is the ISS commander, is waiting for Kimiya and Crew-11 of arrival. And this nice happening is not the first time for Japan. However, it's still a rare case and a great honor. I believe that this is a result of Japan's continued contribution to human activity on ISS, which marks its 50th anniversary this year. Unfortunately, this fun period won't last long, but those gentlemen are both talented, so they must entertain us with something, somehow. And their presence will surely give courage to children all over Japan who dream of space. And the second highlight will be HTV-X1, as Bill mentioned. HTV is a new cargo transfer vehicle JAXA developed, which is the successor to the previous coronatory vehicle. We had 9 coronatory missions through 2009 to 2020, and all the missions were successful. We will launch the first HTV-X from Tanegashima, Japan. Once the vehicle reaches the point very close to the ISS, it will stop there to be captured by Canadarm2. This is one of the important moments to the mission. The robotic arm is operated by an onboard crew, and we are hoping the crew will be Kimiya. If it happens, that will be the second captured operation for Kimiya. The previous one was Konotori number 5. Of course, it was successful, so I believe we will see that great moment again. And we are proud to be able to supply important cargo to the ISS with this HTVX again. There are many other important tasks ahead that Kimiya will be involved in. For instance, the science experiment to clarify the effect of the space environment on plant cell division, or technology demonstration to confirm the device for CO2 removal, which is developed to support future space exploration abroad. Also, we are going to conduct a robotic programming competition by using a drone robot in Kibo. Many young students are going to join in this event from the ground, not only in Japan, but also other countries of Asian Pacific region. Finally, we look forward to working with Kimiya as well as other crew members and all IPs to accomplish those tasks and thereby continue to contribute to the success of ISS program and future space exploration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all of our leaders joining us from NASA, SpaceX, and JAXA here today. We're going to go ahead and open up the floor to the question and answer session. Thank you very much for joining us here, those that are on site. We'll begin with those in the room as our team gets set up. If you do have a question here in the room, please kindly raise your hand, and our team will make our way over to you. And also for those that are joining us online or through the phone bridge, you can use *1 to be added to the queue. If your question has been answered, you can use *2 to redact that. So we'll go ahead and start with our first question here in the room.
Hi there, Miles Dorn with CBS News. For Bill or Ken, maybe, can you give us a status update on the leak in the PRK after the most recent repair work, and kind of explain what the issue was leading up to the Axiom 4 launch and why that was put on hold for a couple of weeks? And what is the current leak rate, and is there agreement with Roscosmos on the cause and the risk going forward? Thanks.
A lot going on in that question to unpack, so I'll try to catch it all. So we prior to the AX4 launch, we did have some operations going on from our Roscosmos colleagues in Paracas, and that resulted in I'll tell you a leak signature difference that we saw. And so as data changes on orbit, we want to assess and go look at that. What it looked like it had done is it had stabilized the leak rate such that we didn't have a great leak rate coming out of the Paracas at that point in time. But we wanted to look at it because we actuate hatches in between the ISS and the Paracas. We wanted to make sure that we understood were there any other factors that could have played into that, which is why we had the discussions that we did and the delays we did. Roscosmos did some troubleshooting on the hatch. And then we had to go look at a couple different pressure levels in the Paracas to confirm the leak across that hatch had been resolved, which it has. And then since then, the Paracas has been holding. Actually, its pressure has been very steady. It's a very small leak rate. It's hard to tell you an exact number because we're at low pressure and it's pretty steady. Pretty small. Sorry. In terms of causes, we continue to work very closely with Roscosmos experts across industry, both on their side and our side, to continue to understand what's going on. I think the teams continue to make great progress in working towards that, and we continue to work with them on a weekly basis to talk through new data results, testing that is ongoing, and continue to share results.
Thank you very much for our question. Back to the room.
Hi, Will Robinson Smith with Spaceflight Now. Question for Steve or for Sarah, perhaps, and then a quick one for Bill. With the certification of Dragon coming up to 6, does that also extend out to the full desire by NASA to have up to 15 flights with Dragon, or is this sort of a mission by mission extension? And then, as far as the spacecraft that are coming up to the station in the fall, and it was Dream Chaser was not mentioned among that list. Has that been slotted for a time to dock to the station in early 26, or what's the latest on that? Thank you.
I can start with certification. So when we embarked upon this extended Dragon certification, SpaceX ran testing for many components out to 15 flights, and so many components are out there at 15 flights. There's a few right now that we have only cleared up to the 6th flight, so we track it sort of component by component. In particular, some of the structural components, we're working on the weldment structure, and then some of the orbital tubes. There's tubes that go through Dragon to take helium from the propellant tanks from the helium tank to the prop tanks, and then also propellant tanks. And so some of those are looking like there's 6 or 7 flights. So, our focus here is to really get to this particular launch to make sure that we have everything cleared for 6 flights. And then down the road, we may have a little bit more work to do depending on the specific vehicle and how many flights it is. The overall goal was 15 flights, and we've gotten there on many components. Now we're just down to a handful that really are there for only 6 flights. And I'll see if Sarah has anything to add.
Yeah, good words. I think the metrics are going to shake out that we will be at about 70% of the components that, together with your team, Steve, we will have fully certified to 15 flights, and then the other 30% or so, somewhere between 6 and 15, depending on how those reviews went. Our goal was to be 100% qualified, meaning we completed all the tests and analyses on our side to demonstrate 15x life, with maybe a few exceptions, but largely the entire vehicle. And so we've been finishing the last 1 or 2 of those tests. The teams have worked great together the last 6 months to work through all of that test data and check off component by component its qualified flight limit. So the primary goal of the day was to fly this 6th flight vehicle, knowing that the ultimate goal is 15x, and we wanted to perform our tests in a way that we were there with the hardware perspective and working towards the reviews with the NASA teams.
Let's hear on the Dream Chaser question. Of course, we all know that space flight is hard, and so when you're coming up to the first flight of a new vehicle, it takes some time. I don't have an update for you on when our planned launch date is for Dream Chaser. We're continuing to work very close with Sierra Space on the development of that vehicle, and we can get an update out at a later time.
Thank you very much for your question. We'll do one more here in the room before going to the phone bridge.
Oh, thank you, Mark Carreau with Aviation Week and Space Technology. My question is, in the aftermath of the signing of the reconciliation bill several days ago, is that easing some of the operational and cost concerns for the rest of the year, at least for space station operations? Is that in play yet, or coming into play, or at least it hasn't interrupted the planning?
I may let Ken answer that one for me, but if he's out there.
I believe that'll be for Mr. Ken Bowerstocks, if he's still with us. Well,
so we have the... Yeah, I'm still here. We have the Information in the Reconciliation Act. We're still evaluating how that's going to affect operations going forward, but it's a positive step. The way our appropriations process works, the president makes a proposal, we get information back from Congress in the form of supplemental appropriations, markups, and then the final appropriation. But then that final appropriation bill goes over to the president, and the president signed it, and that becomes the guidance from both the president and the Congress. And we're still working through all of that to figure out how it will completely affect our programs. but it's a positive step.
Thank you very much for that question. We'll turn now to our phone bridge, and we will start things off with Marcia Dunn from AP.
Yes, hello. Probably for Steve, if I might. Is the Crew-11, are you targeting a 6-month mission, or are you going to start following Russians' lead and bumping to 8-month missions to spread things out more? And if you could please provide a Starliner update, any progress on that front, any idea of the exact cause of all the problems, and your what your plans are for moving forward on that. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, we'll start with the first question, the mission duration. So we have embarked upon an additional on-orbit certification to extend our mission durations from 6 months. Actually, it's 210 days is what's the requirement, from 6 to 8 months. And so we have started that work with SpaceX. Right now, we're focused on getting the 15X certification, to get to a 6th flight work done. SpaceX is in the process of delivering the rest of the data for extending the mission out to 8 months. It'll probably take us a month or so to go through that data after we launch. So you can think of it this way, Marshall. When we launch, we have a 6-month mission duration that we baseline. Of course, we've already flown one mission very close to up to 7 months. And then, we can extend the mission in real time as needed, as we better understand, as Ken talked about, the reconciliation bill and the appropriations process and what that means relative to the overall station manifest. So in terms of Starliner, I would say a lot of testing is going on and a lot of modeling updates all across the country. We had a series of helium leaks that we dealt with during the CFT, the crewed flight test. We have various materials in test right now to improve that seal on the helium interface at the flange of the thruster. We know that we get some permeation of oxidizer vapor across, and the seal that we had was not very robust for oxidizer exposure. So there's testing ongoing across the country to expose the new material that's proposed to various levels of oxidizer and understand how much permeation we can get. So that testing's ongoing, likely leading to a new seal that will replace the seals in the thruster flanges. And then on the thrusters that the software deselected because of low thrust, we have a series of tests ongoing as we speak at the White Sands test facility in New Mexico. We have a thruster that we're taking and putting through various numbers of pulse trains. In other words, small pulses and a certain frequency of those pulses, larger pulses at a different frequency, to understand how the thruster responds to those various pulses. And we're learning a lot about the differences in the oxidizer valve temperatures. The thruster has ox that comes in on one side and fuel that comes in on the other. We're learning a lot about the differences in those temperatures as a function of pulse trains. What that will lead to is taking that results of that, informing thermal models, and also doing what we call an integrated doghouse test. That doghouse has been delivered to White Sands. It's in the test stand. That testing and the test stand is being built up to do that testing. That'll involve a series of RCS thrusters being fired at the same time as our OMAC, or orbital maneuvering thrusters, to understand the heat going into that doghouse. That testing is scheduled to start next month, toward the end of next month. And so we're making a lot of progress and understanding kind of the thermal performance. These will be informed thermal modeling. And then Boeing has also implemented a series of hardware modifications. For example, on that single engine thruster that's being tested at White Sands, there's what's called a thermal shunt, or think of it as a way to draw heat away from the thruster. So that's showing a lot of progress compared to the original design of the thruster. And then there's some thermal barriers that will keep the heat from the OMACs from getting back up into the doghouse, and some other thermal modifications inside that doghouse. that doghouse is instrumented with temperature sensors throughout the doghouse, and so when we get into that testing, we can better inform our models. We really are working toward a flight as soon as early next year for Starliner, and then ultimately our goal is to get into crew rotation flights with Starliner, and those would start no earlier than the second rotation slot at the end of next year.
Thank you very much for your question. We'll go back to the phone bridge. Chris Davenport with the Washington Post.
Yeah, hi. Thanks very much. I guess for Steve Stitch and Sox, it's a bit of a, I think it's fair to say, tumultuous time at NASA. You have your second interim administrator this year. The DRPs mean hundreds of people, maybe leaving the agency or wondering what to do and what the future holds for them. And I just wonder, given all that, how do you stay focused on the mission? And what do you tell your teams about fending off distractions and remaining just sort of focused on safety and flying safely and thinking about the crew? Thanks.
Yeah, I can start and then we'll let Ken add. I mean, we are laser focused in Commercial Crew on getting the work accomplished for the flight. And we try to put the distractions aside. Our team is very experienced and has been through this in various ways throughout the 10 years I've been a part of Commercial Crew, the 5 years I've been the program manager. So we just really, it's kind of like preparing for a sports event. If you're a football player or a baseball player, you kind of have to block out what's out there beyond your control and then focus on what you can control and what our team can control. And our team is incredibly professional, incredibly dedicated. What they can control is getting through the certification work that they have in front of them. And we watch that. We track them every week to week. We also talk to our team about what's going on and the criticality of their work. I think, they know their work really affects the safety of the crew and the success of these missions. I think that's what's important to them. That's what keeps them coming to work every day, and that's what drives them is the work they have and the fulfillment of flying the mission safely. And so I think that's what we do every day with our team. And I'll see if Ken has anything to add.
Yeah, I'll just echo what Steve said. Our teams deal with all the excitement of launches, orbital operations, the incredibly difficult process of doing rendezvous and docking, and then bringing crews home, trying to assess what the weather's going to be like, and then bringing them down in this huge fireball for the parachutes to open. There's tremendous stress just in the basic mission. And so they learn to compartmentalize and focus on their task so that they can make sure that they do what's required so the mission is successful. And our team is really good at that. And it is impressive to watch. I know for me, getting to a mission is kind of a pleasant distraction from all the excitement in DC. And I think it's that way for a lot of the rest of our team members.
Thank you very much for your question, and we'll do one more from the phone bridge, and then as we're starting to make our way on the back end of our time here, and be sure to keep your questions limited to just one and keep them brief. That way we can manage and get as many as we can before our time runs out. Then we'll open it up back here in the room. Any additional questions or follow-ups, please be sure to raise your hand, and our team will be sure to bring a microphone over to you. But back to the phone bridge for Stephen Clark with Ars Technica.
Hi, Stephen Clark, Ars Technica. Thanks for doing this. I have a couple of questions. First, for Bill Spetch, to clarify something you said earlier about the leak. Is there any evidence of any leaks elsewhere in the stack other than the PRK? And just to clarify, inside that PRK, that you said the leak rate is very small, maybe almost immeasurable, if I understood you correctly. Is there some optimism that the repair the cosmonauts performed last month may have fixed this problem, at least for now? And my other questions for Steve Stitch or Fox. Looking ahead, you have a lot of flights on contract with SpaceX and Boeing, commercial crew rotation flights, but only really 4.5 years, 5 years of a life left in the ISS. So seems like you have more flights on contract than you'll be able to fly over the next 5 years, especially if you're stretching out increments out to 8 months. So, any discussion right now with Boeing or internally to talk about, maybe we don't need to give Boeing the authority to proceed the ATP for flights 4 through 6, since you may be covered with all your needs for the first 3 Starliners and everything you have at SpaceX? Thanks.
All right, yeah, I can start with the first one. It's pretty easy. The rest of the station is leak tight. We get to look at that. We continuously monitor that, and everything else shows that we are really tight on our leak rate on the rest of ISS. No evidence of any other cracks any other or any other places.
Yeah, and I'll start relative to looking at the flights. We have 14 flights on contract with SpaceX and 6 on the contract with Boeing, and 3 of those have been ATP'd, and we're sort of in the process as we better understand the budget and better understand what's in front of us. We're working through that. It's really too early to speculate how many flights we'll fly with each provider, SpaceX and Boeing, but we are looking at that, looking at the station life, and then we're also looking ahead toward commercial LEO and toward the commercial LEO destinations, and preserving transportation capability, both cargo and crew, for those destinations. So one of the things we've talked about is if we have capability at the end of station program, could we use those vehicles for comm LEO? And so those are the kind of discussions we're having. Right now we're taking it one step at a time, and the first step in front of us is Crew-11. So, and I'll see if Ken has anything to add.
No, nothing to add there, Steve. You got it.
Thank you very much for that, and we'll bring it back here in the room for one more question.
Marcus Harvey with Astropreneurs. This is either for Steve or Sarah. Could you explain a little more about the heat shield upgrades and why they were needed, if you don't mind?
Yeah, I can talk about that and see if Sarah has anything to add. So, what we found with the heat shield is it's a very big composite piece, and it was very hard to manufacture, I would say. And it was as the components inside this heat shield, there's what's called a laminate. Think of that as the skin, if you will, of this big composite heat shield, and then inside there's various splices that get bonded in and add additional strength to the heat shield. It was a real struggle to manufacture and to get the strength right in various areas. So SpaceX, to their credit, went off and looked at could they build and design an easier to manufacture heat shield, and that's what they have done. It turns out because the other heat shield was a little harder to manufacture, sometimes we had to back off on the capability of the wind speed that we could land at. Now this newer heat shield has been built and it's been tested. In fact, what SpaceX does is they take the heat shield and put it through a test apparatus. They push on it, they pull on it, they subject it to all the kind of forces you'd see in flight. So it's fully qualified, and now we'll fly it for the first time on Crew-11. So it's an upgrade that I would say both gives us a little better capability for landing wind speed, and then also a little bit more structural capability, easier to build. And see if Sarah has anything to add.
Nope, you got it exactly right, Steve. Thanks.
Thank you very much for that question. We'll do one more here in the room, and then we'll finish up the remainder of our time on the phone bridge.
Thanks, Will Robinson Smith of Spaceflight Now again. Just to follow up on Marcia's Starliner question and your response, Steve. The flight early next year, has it been determined if that will have crew on board or strictly cargo, or what the status of that is? Thanks.
Yeah, we're still looking at that, whether to be a cargo flight or not. I think there's a lot of advantages, I would say, to flying a cargo flight first. If we really look at the history of Starliner and both Dragon, I think Dragon benefited a lot from having earlier flights before the crew contract was let for a space station for cargo. What we're really looking at is, can we test all the changes that we are making to the doghouses in particular on the ground, and would we want to validate those in flight first? And so there's a strong chance we'll fly a cargo flight first, and then we still haven't made that decision yet, but that's still in front of us.
Thank you very much for that, and we'll go back to our phone bridge. Again, we only have a couple more minutes left in our time today, so be sure to keep your questions brief. We'll start with Jonathan Seri with Fox News.
The Dragon Endeavor for this mission, does that change the estimates for loss of mission, loss of crew, and what are those current estimates?
I didn't hear the first part of the question. I think the question was, does the additional certification change the loss of crew numbers? Was that the question?
It does the upgrades to the drogue and also the heat shield to this Dragon, does that change the estimates for loss of mission, loss of crew?
We haven't really totally looked at that number. I think the number is in the same range that we've had, and we can get that number for you. I don't remember it off the top of my head this morning, but certainly they are safety upgrades, improving crew safety, both of those, the heat shield and the drogue. I don't have off the top of my head what the improvement in.
Yeah, if I may, Steve, you guys have given us requirements for loss of mission, loss of crew, and Dragon has always been designed to meet those requirements. And similarly, we've been operating within the requirement space that NASA gave us for all of these systems on all the previous flights. The couple of upgrades we've been making more recently are purely improvements above and beyond that. So we don't go back and reopen those analyses of certifying the vehicle. It's more about moving in the right direction. And as you mentioned with the heat shield, a lot of those improvements aren't really about the flight itself, but about the manufacturability of the material or the ease of maintenance from one flight to the next.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Sarah, for that. And we'll finish up with one more question and one more answer. We'll go to Kenneth Chang with the New York Times.
Thank you. I wanted to follow up on Chris Davenport's question. How many people from the NASA teams on ISS and commercial crew are leaving? I wanted to make sure, are any of you leaving? And how do you manage that transition where a lot of people with the knowledge are no longer going to be there? And how do you backfill? Thank you.
Yeah, I would say we don't have a total number of people that have departed or will depart. Remember, all these projections are really after Crew-11. So for Crew-11, that mission's not affected at all by the departures. And in some cases, what I think we'll see is people that have been here for a long time and we're planning to retire anyway may retire a little earlier. And so I would say personally, I'm not planning on taking the DRPs. Although I'm sure some people encouraged me to take it. So.
And I want to offer to Mr. Bowersox if he had anything to add in terms of from SOMD.
I was just going to say I'm not planning to take any of the early retirement options either, although I'm getting close to that age, so nobody should be surprised when it happens. I also wanted to say that we have some tools as we're trying to manage the critical skills in the workforce. There are ways we can incentivize people to stay. We can ask people to delay their departure so that they can transfer their knowledge to other people. But I don't want to underexpress the fact that we are losing people and that we have folks that have been part of our team for a long time that are going. This is going to require us to take a different look at how we do our business, to focus our operation. That's kind of the good part of it is as this will cause us to work and be more efficient. But we're going to miss those people. They were part of our team, and we'll miss them as they go. But I have confidence that our team will work through this, and we'll stay strong.
Thank you very much. And that is all the time that we do have for today's mission news briefing as we get ready for the next crew rotational mission to the International Space Station and Crew-11 coming up very soon. Special thanks to Ken Bowersox and Steve Stitch and Bill Spetch joining us of NASA, Sarah Walker of SpaceX, and Mayumi Matsura of JAXA joining us along. Be sure to stick around and stay with us at 1 o'clock Central, 2 o'clock Eastern Time, a chance to speak with the crew themselves, Commander Zena Cardman, pilot Michael Fincke, Kimiya Yui of JAXA, mission specialist, and Oleg Platonov of Roscosmos. Roscosmos, and also a mission specialist will be here to join in for the crew's news conference. If you're following along at home, you can ask the crew some questions by submitting on your favorite social media channels at #AskNASA. But that'll do it for now. Thank you for joining us.